Good afternoon and welcome into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Nathan Zagura with you here live at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. Bon voyage, Bo Bishop. We will see you.
Did he leave on time? Because
I hope so. I need to get some updates from him.
I had a dentist appointment at 7:50.
Yeah.
I happened to be in the flight pattern, and I saw a plane that would have been his potentially leaving, and I'm like, well, I thought his flight was at 7. So he would be a few minutes late. But
let's see. I'm going to find out right now. We're going to eat.
G-Man, it says sources are telling him he left a little early and got there a little early. Sources are also saying that the G-Man not great at the bracket predicting.
Oh, baby.
Creighton up 47-29 on Louisville with 1:33 to go in the first.
G-Man, you've already conferred with
we got to give updates throughout
with
the day.
Bo. We're going to give updates. All right, give the updates again.
18-14 Purdue up over High Point.
All right, that's
I
not
might
good.
have High Point in the Sweet
We have
16.
High Point in our crazy bracket. We had High Point because we'd rather go to North Carolina, and then we have Louisville over Creighton because we
that
thought
was a mistake.
we would host.
Creighton's up 47-29.
Oh boy! Well, we'd rather
Almost
host Louisville
halftime
show.
then.
That's bad. We have Louisville in the Sweet 16. We have High Point into the Sweet 16.
I have High Point in the
This is
Sweet
complete
16,
out.
and I didn't even do the tomfoolery.
It's complete nonsense. Our bracket's already destroyed. That's okay. That's all right. All right, we'll get an update on Bo Bishop. So we only have 2 games underway.
2 games underway. There'll be a third starting. What do I got? Wisconsin, Montana at about 1:30.
Ooh, Montana, obviously. That's a big one.
That is a big one.
That's a big one for us. I got all my big ones are in the from a personal standpoint. We've got Arizona and St. Mary's in the same region in the East, but they wouldn't meet until the Elite Eight if they both went on a big run. My father's alma mater, my mother's alma mater, and then at Arizona, the Great Zago. I have Arizona meeting Duke, Gibby. That could be a real war for us if we get there.
I do as well in one, and then I do have the Zips taking them out in the first one.
Nobody likes that. Well, people around here.
A little Maction. I got to represent the Maction.
Gotta represent. Yeah, these are our hot topics of the day presented by University Hospitals, the official healthcare partner of your Cleveland Browns. March Madness has begun. Everybody, I'm sure, has gotten
It's
their
the only thing that matters.
their brackets in. That's not the only thing that matters. We're going to get some other things that matter in a second.
Eh.
Coming up on the show, we will go around the league. We're going to have Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports join the Twisted Tea hotline to talk about his updated mock draft, which I like some of it. I don't like all of it, but I do like some of it, and I like his thinking. I just don't see – I mean, I hope it's right that Travion would be there then, but I took him 33 in my mock draft, so we had the same player.
It's a big discrep.
Well, it's half, less than half. Hour number 2, we're going to get highlights from Mel Kiper's draft teleconference from yesterday. Lots of good information about the quarterbacks, and Shedeur Sanders is the top quarterback on his board. We'll get you some more March Madness updates. And then we got a mailbag today, so get your questions in. We can have a lot of fun here. Not a ton going on in the National Football League, but we do have maybe a little bit of Browns news. The Browns are reportedly signing veteran wide receiver and return specialist DeAndre Carter to a 1-year deal. Carter will be entering his 8th NFL season, and the Browns will be his 7th NFL team. He was originally signed as an undrafted free agent out of Sacramento State by the Baltimore Ravens. He spent time with the Texans, the Bears, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Eagles. He has the 4th most career kick return yards and the 3rd most punt return yards among active NFL players. Last year with the Bears, he averaged 9.3 yards per punt return and 31.9 yards per kick return, which was one of the highest figures in the league, right, G-Man?
Yes, and G-Man also knew right away. He's like, oh, yeah, he went to Sacramento State. I'm like, it's 9 a.m. Where did you pull that? Did you read that earlier? Nope, just knew.
G-Man is an elite reservoir of information. Of course he knew. Carter also has 117 career receptions for 1,331 yards and 6 touchdowns. So the Browns have been trying this for years, if we're being honest about it. This is going back 5 years, right? Because you had 2 years.
Go back a little further than that.
To get a return guy?
Yeah.
That's probably true. It goes back to Josh Cribbs. But I'm talking about getting somebody who had been incredibly productive 4 years ago, or now I guess it would be, I think 4 years ago, it was Jakeem Grant. gets hurt in training camp, misses the year, comes back the next year, gets hurt in the preseason opener.
No, the finale in Kansas City.
Preseason finale, that's right. Preseason finale in Kansas City on his first touch, which was a kick return.
Yeah.
So maybe that's 2 years ago.
Yes.
So 3 years ago, we signed Grant, injured. 2 years ago, tries injured. Last year, we signed Nyheim Hines, never plays. And now we've got DeAndre Carter. So hopefully for DeAndre Carter, that will work out. We can't be bitten by the bug, too long. Now, for the Browns, upgrading the return game, I think would be very, very good. I think it would be a good thing for this team because they're trying to incentivize more and more kick returns, and the Browns last year, we were not necessarily great at it. That wasn't really our forte. If you look at our returns last season, we actually got a little bit of juice. I want to say late in the season, didn't we get a little juice from Jerome Ford had a couple of nice returns, but for the most part, the Browns struggled in the return game, and so they're trying. It's been something I said. They've been chasing this white whale for quite some time, and it just has not yet worked out for them. So hopefully this is the year that with the returns, it does get a little bit better. Here we go, kick and punt returns. Browns last year, leader in punt return yards. Jalen Darden had 22 for 234. He did a good job, 10.6 yards a punt return. On a kick returns, the Browns' leading kick returner was 15 for 388. Jerome Ford, 25.9, just for comparison's sake, 'cause I'm pretty sure we had the same number of returns there, if I'm not mistaken. 15 for 479, 31.9 average. So when you're doing that, you're giving yourself some decent field position, and that's obviously what the Browns make that move for. It's the little things, right? It's the little margins, cheap signing, guy who can play for you, as I said, can play some receiver for you, have over 1,000 yards receiving in his career, has been able to stay in the league, though, for the large part because of what he's able to do. Not the biggest guy.
No.
But neither was Jakeem Grant, neither Nyheim Hines. 5'8", 190. 5'8", 190. Last year had only 9 catches for 72 yards. Best year as a receiver was 2022 when he was with the Chargers. 46 catches, 538 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that season. But again, it's been the returning. That's where he has really that's where he's been his best. Last year's 31.9 was a career high on the kick return. He's averaged over 9 yards a punt return, though, 3 straight seasons. Career high was 11.7 in that 22 season with the Chargers. I would probably want to watch a lot of that Chargers tape and say, what can we get? Can we get some of that out of him here? Can we get some of what he produced for the Chargers there? Can we get some of that here? That was really his most productive season in the National Football League. For that 2021, he had on that season, he caught 296 yards on the year, but he scored 4 touchdowns that year. So he had 7 touchdowns in 21 and 22. He has not scored from on the field since then. And hopefully, like I said, we can get back, kind of capture some of that magic for him. In 2021, he also did have a kick return for a touchdown. So no punt return touchdowns on his career, but a career 9.7 average. Does have 1 kick return touchdown. That was back in 2021. Could be some other moves coming down for the Browns as well. And we'll certainly keep you updated if we know anything. Oh, Bo Bishop, here it is on Twitter. Great job out of United, efficient, great service. Left a little early, arrived a little early. All wins.
Sources to Gabe were true.
Yeah. On Twitter. I do follow him on social media, even though he doesn't follow me. That's okay. All right. So that's where things are there. Still no news, unfortunately, for many of us. No news, right, on Nick Chubb. That's what I think a lot of us are waiting for.
I don't remember it being this quiet this early in free agency.
It's almost like this has been one of the quietest free agencies of all time.
I think you can make that argument.
Because it used to be there'd be a huge wave at the beginning, and then there'd be another real nice wave that would come after that. We really haven't had that nice kind of second wave at all, which is interesting. By the way, the Hoff is down in the British Virgin Islands.
I was going to ask where he's at.
Something Yost Island?
I don't know. It's Joe Thomas Island.
No.
Because the way he's owning things down there. Did you see the fishing trip he and the kids went on?
Joost van Dyke is the name of the island. So it's a small island in the BVI.
Congratulations on all your success.
Jack caught a barracuda.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Although I don't think that it's all going perfectly for him. Although he did have today a great honor. The Hoff was selected as the first offensive lineman in the EA Madden NFL Ring of Honor. Congrats on that, Hoff. So that's good for him. Is the G-Man playing? Anybody in there playing any men? G-Man or J-Mac?
It's all college football.
All college football. Yeah, that's Madden. That would be ultimate team right there. He would be looking.
He had something. He had. Let me see if I can find it.
By the way, he also came up with $1 billion idea. Did you?
That's yeah.
An electric shock smartwatch for children. Once the child reaches their 100-question daily quota, the electric shock is activated for each additional question until the child either takes a 90-minute nap or eats 2 servings of green vegetables. Then the 100-question quota resets. Brilliant. So I said, you're obviously having fun. Kids are being fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, they're good, and at some point you're like, there's not enough beverage to keep this entertaining.
Well, this is what happens. This is what happens here. So yeah, it is. Really, truly has been a very kind of quiet free agency period around the league. And I thought once we knew that Minnesota wasn't interested in Rodgers, I thought maybe that domino would fall. You're hearing a lot more about Russell Wilson going to the Giants of late. And then on our side of things, in terms of what people are hearing about the Cleveland Browns, is you are hearing a little bit of noise. Mary Kay Cabot yesterday reporting that Carson Wentz and the Browns have a mutual interest in them. Now, Carson Wentz was the number 2 pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, and the Browns elected not to take him. They traded out of that spot once the Rams jumped them when the Titans had the first pick to get Jared Goff. And it's interesting how it's kind of the circuitous route that he has taken in this league, but Carson Wentz in 2017 was on his way to being the league's MVP. He was. He was on his way to being the MVP of the National Football League. Got hurt down in L.A. against the Rams. Nick Foles comes in. They win the Super Bowl that year. And then since that point, he's been he bounced around a little bit. Ends up out of Philadelphia after 2020 into Indianapolis in 2021. Goes 9-8 as a starter. 62% completions, 3,563 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 7 picks, and plays well. But then they have a late season kind of collapse. They blow a game in Jacksonville. They should have won. They don't make the playoffs. He goes to Washington. That was a little bit of a debacle. He goes to the Rams and is the backup quarterback for Matt Stafford in L.A. in 2023. And then in 2024, he is the backup quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he's at least had 2 years learning behind 2 of the best, Matt Stafford and, of course, Patrick Mahomes. And, who knows? If you look at him in his last 4 seasons in the league, last 4 years, not a lot of play, obviously, outside of really one of those seasons, but in his last 4 seasons in the league, 40 touchdown passes, 17 interceptions. For his career, it's 153 and 67. So he's got 4 seasons in his career where he's got 21 or more touchdowns and 7 or fewer picks. He's got 3 seasons with 27 or more touchdowns and 7 or fewer picks. He also has some seasons not as good in Philadelphia as last year. They're 57% completion, 16 touchdowns, 15 picks to lead the league, and he only played in 12 games.
Was not a big fan favorite in Washington.
No, when we were there, they were booing him mercilessly.
Yeah.
11 touchdowns, 9 picks, 62% completion there, was 2-5 as a starter in Washington. No, they wanted Tyler Heineke on the day that we were there. That is for sure. But that's where it is. And if you look at this Browns roster right now, as a matter of fact, I still think that there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of fleshing this roster out. And I know we've got the draft coming up, and obviously that's going to be a big part of it. But if you look at it right now in terms of people under contract and who are healthy, there's still a lot to accomplish. So we'll start on offense, right?
I was going to say, I've got the depth chart up.
You do? Me too. All right. Quarterback. Your only healthy quarterback on the roster right now is Kenny Pickett.
Yes.
That's it. Browns will likely have 3 on the final 53. Your only running backs on the roster right now are Jerome Ford
and Pierre Strong.
You'll have 3 or 4 of these on the final roster.
Yes. Hopefully Nick Chubb.
All right, wide receivers right now on the roster for the Cleveland Browns. You've got Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, but he's coming off of missing 6 games in a concussion situation. You've got David Bell, who missed, I feel like, basically all of last year.
Yeah.
You've got Jamari Thrash, who played minimally, Mike Woods, who played minimally, and Caden Davis, who did not play. You really have right now 2 guys who I think are locks to be on your roster at the wide receiver room. Well, and now we'd add DeAndre Carter.
Yes.
And I feel like if he can return, he'd be 3, and that's probably going to be 6. So I think Bell, Thrash, Woods, those guys are all in competition. Caden Davis, they're all in competition. I don't think anybody in that spot is handed a spot on this roster. So I still think there's work to be done.
I mean, David Bell got cut last year and then brought back, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, there's work to be done in that room. Tight ends.
What about going back to that? I think it was NFL.com. I think it was our good friend Nick Shook. He had his top 15 remaining free agents in their most suitable homes. And Elijah Moore was on that list, and he thinks that Elijah's coming back here.
I mean, I'd love that. I'd love Elijah to come back here. That would be fantastic. I think that would be helpful.
Given the wide receiver room currently, I think you need him.
All right. On our roster right now, you look at the tackle position. We've got DeJuan Jones coming back off of an injury. Jack Conklin.
Yep.
We've got Cornelius Lucas, who we just signed.
Yep.
And then we've got
Roy Mbedeka. Sure.
Who is like the international program player.
Yep.
We've got Julian Pearl.
Yep. And Lorenzo Thompson.
Right. So we've got 3 right now.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to end up with 4. Offensive guard, we've got Joel Bitonio. Welcome back. We've got Wyatt Teller, which that's good. You've got Zach Zinter. You've got Javian Cohen, who they are still very high on as well. And you've got Brady Latham. You'll probably have 4 there, 3 or 4 there. But we're in a good spot there. I think you could go in with these 4 right now.
Yeah. And if you can get another one, great.
Yeah, I don't know that you necessarily need it. Oh, I should add, and we have Troy Hairston in running back room, who's a fullback.
Gotcha.
Centers, you got Posick.
And Whippler.
Who's coming off of injury. So, I mean, you still have a lot of work to do.
Well, and tight end.
Tight end, you got Njoku, Jordan Akins, Blake Whiteheart, and Bates.
No, Akins is a free agent.
Akins is not on the list anymore?
Correct. Akins is a free agent.
Oh, baby.
So, I mean, you got Njoku, Whiteheart, Brendan Bates,
and Trey McKitty. So you need – that's why – and every draft we've done, we've had them drafting a tight end. But, yes, you need to add somebody into there, and potentially even a veteran too, although I like what Blake Whiteheart gave us last year. All right, so that's on the offense. On the defensive side – you go to the defensive end. This is a room that I feel – that's the other thing. I feel this room's loaded already.
Yeah, a nice conversation piece for Mr. Trapasso in 20 minutes.
Well, he would say that Abdul Carter is better than anybody else you have, which is fine. But this is not a room that is saying, oh, we need to add talent. As it stands right now, you have Myles Garrett. You have Isaiah McGuire, who played very well last year. You have Alex Wright, who's played well. You have Obo Okoronkwo, and you have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Like, you've got 5 right now.
Correct. You got Cam Thomas. You got Ellerson Smith.
And he played well for you at the end of the year?
A little bit. Marcus Haynes.
I don't think those – are those guys still here?
I believe so.
I don't think so. Who are you on, our lads, or are you on our website?
Our lads.
Yeah, our website says for defensive ends, Alex Wright, Tryon-Shoyinka, Cam Thomas. Oh, there's Ellerson. Very good. Obo, McGuire.
I'm a tremendous slouch.
But not who was the other one you said? Haynes?
Marcus Haynes.
He's not listed.
Okay.
All right. Defensive tackle room. We've got
I think you're gonna need a body here. Somewhere.
Malik Collins, Mike Hall, Shelby Harris, and Jawan Briggs. I bet they'd be fine with those 4 right now.
Sam Kamara too.
Sam Kamara. And there's Ralph Holly.
Yes.
Is listed.
My only concern is Mike Hall getting hurt at the end of the year.
Yeah, well, he's coming off an injury, right? Juwan Briggs showed.
Shelby was dinged up.
Yep, and Shelby's this is last year. I mean, you got to have some succession planning in there as well.
Yeah. So I just think at the defensive tackle spot, that might be a position you've got to address at some point.
All right. And then we've got in the linebacker room, JOK, who's unfortunately a big question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, that stinks. JOK, you've got Devin Bush back. You've got Jordan Hicks. You've got Mahmoud Diabate.
Yep.
You've got
Winston
Reed, Nathaniel Watson, Buki Watson. And Khaleke Hudson is still under contract?
I don't see him on my list.
All right, he's on our website, so we'll operate as if. But nonetheless, I mean, your starters right now would be Devin Bush, Hicks, and Diabate. You've got some good young depth in Reed and Watson. JOK, obviously, that's the huge question mark. That's everything there is JOK. Cornerback room right now is Denzel, MJ, Greg Newsome. Quarterback room you actually feel pretty decent about.
Yeah, because I think you're excited to see what Miles Harden can do.
Cam Mitchell, Miles Harden, Anuzium, who they signed in the middle of the year.
Anthony Kendall's on that list.
Anthony Kendall from Baldwin Wallace.
The pride.
I mean, you could add one here because they're going to have to make a decision at some point on Gnu in terms of what that looks like. So the safety is where I think you're way light.
Yes.
And I'm pretty surprised we have not addressed that yet. Right now, all we've got is free safety Ronnie Hickman, strong safety Grant Delpit.
I have a Christopher Edmonds and a Trey Dean, the third.
Christopher Edmonds was an undrafted free agent last year. He's more of a free safety. And a Trey Dean, the third, again, has not played. I mean, we need
You're going to need a couple bodies.
I was shocked that we let DeAnthony Bell go test the market. Shocked. I thought DeAnthony Bell's
signed
been
with
so
anybody?
good for us. I don't think so.
He visited with someone.
I think he visited with Seattle, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has signed. I like DeAnthony Bell. A great deal. Safety for the Browns. First guy out of West Florida to make the NFL. It doesn't look like he's signed. He had a visit with the Seahawks a week ago, but we have not heard anything of him signing. Long snapper, you've got Rex Sunahara. Punter, you've got our guy Corey Bojorquez. Kicker, you've got D-Hop. And hope that, obviously he can. It's been a tale of 2 years for D-Hop, so you certainly hope that he can bounce back this season. Did we have anybody else?
At kicker,
don't we have another kicker?
Andre Schmidt.
Okay.
The Z threw me for a little loop.
From Syracuse. Yeah, that sounds right. So, defensively, this goes back to my point before. Defensively, you're in a much better spot. Like, if you had to, your starting lineup today would be Myles Garrett and then, the rotation opposite him of Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, Obo, or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Your starting defensive tackles would be Malik Collins and Mike Hall, with your backups being Shelby Harris and Briggs. Your linebackers today would be Hicks, JOK, and Bush, and if no JOK, then it would be Mahmoud Diabate. Your corners would be your three from a year ago, Denzel, MJ, and Greg Newsome, and your safeties would be Ronnie Hickman and Grant Delpit. Now, to me, the biggest thing that's missing on defense is that third safety. That's a glaring hole. But the rest of the defense, you could kind of roll with right now.
Yeah, I think you need a little another linebacker, another defensive tackle.
Sure, but I'm saying like you could actually roll right now. Offensively, you cannot roll right now.
No, I think
you need
tackle.
You need a quarterback. You need You need two running backs. You need Nick Chubb, and you need a draft running back.
You need two quarterbacks.
You need two quarterbacks. You need probably 2+ wide receivers. You need at least one tight end. Probably need one tackle. and maybe a center. Or a guard center, even better. But, I mean, that's a big difference than how things are right now on the offensive side. I mean, on the defensive side. Defense, you are in a much, much better position. Much better position. So, again, that's why it goes back to the draft. I'm using all my – and we were the worst scoring team in the league. So I'm using all my capital on the offensive side. I think that makes a heck of a lot more sense.
And I just wonder – like, we were talking about it today because we didn't have a lot going on in free agency.
Holly.
Holly's awesome.
I know. Look down. We're sad. Where was the Indian food? There she is. She's dancing. She's dancing, gliding across the stage there. Should have been Indian food today.
Yeah,
I could have had a delicious naan.
I love naan.
Love naan. A hearth, like
especially
a tandoori
on a day
oven
like
baked
today.
Flatbread.
All the wonderful weather we're back to having on the first day of
rice,
spring.
a little curry chicken.
Yeah. Welcome to
a little lamb Rogan Josh. I've nominated myself to be the food czar, if they'll allow it.
I think it can. I mean, they do a fine job. I feel like there are forces within the building.
Yeah, they do a fine job. That's why I need
holding us back.
I'm gonna be an advocate. Where's the split pea with the smoked ham hock?
Oh,
where is it? By the way, Holly was shocked today. She's like, I don't understand. You don't like pierogies, but you like dumplings or pot stickers. And I'm like, yeah. What's the confusion? What'd G-Man say?
He goes, that is not the same thing at all.
No, I said, Holly, what's inside of a pierogi? She's like, potatoes and cheese. I said, well, what's inside of a dumpling? Meat. And veggies and garlic and all those things mixed together into a little, not the same thing at all.
No.
Big dumpling guy. I still think there should be a restaurant, nothing but dumplings. You want king crab in a dumpling? Here, we got it. You want some prime rib in a dumpling? Sure, why not? Any kind of dumpling you think of. Kind of like a taco dumpling.
No one gets hurt.
Nobody gets hurt. I think everybody's having a great time. Everybody's having the time of their lives, quite frankly. All right, when we come back, we're going to go around the league. Hopefully, we're going to drum up some more news for everybody here, but we're going to go around the league at 1:30, 1:40. Chris Trapasso joins us to talk about his 3-round mock draft. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Add more fun to your fandom with the Bally Bet Sportsbook app. Download today and get $50 in bonus bets when you place your first wager of $10 or more. Bally Bet, an official sports betting partner of the Cleveland Browns. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily. Time now to go around the league, presented by Leaf Filter, the official gutter guard of the Cleveland Browns. But before we do that, let's go around the madness.
You want to?
Yeah, give me updates, Gibbe.
Creighton 56, Louisville 40, 16:30 to go in the second half.
Terrible.
From Lexington. Isn't that Louisville? It's like a home game for the Cardinals.
Well,
halftime, Purdue on top of High Point, 37-27.
Ugh.
That's not great. The G-Man's loving life on that. Wisconsin just underway, 4-3 on Montana.
okay.
There we go.
The winner of Purdue
Bricks.
High Point will play the winner of Clemson and McNeese State. The winner of Louisville Creighton will likely play Auburn in the round of 32. And the winner of Wisconsin Montana will play the winner of BYU VCU. All right, we go around the league now. The Patriots have Stephon Diggs in town for a visit.
How
Diggs
about that?
coming off the torn ACL he suffered in his lone season in Houston. Potential weapon for Drake May. Yes, he is a potential weapon for Drake May, and they are in bad need of weapons for Drake May. They have not really addressed that at all so far this offseason as a parade of guests comes up the stairs here. Right, I mean, a real...
Was Jay leading that charge?
I mean, there's 100 people coming. Must have been one heck of a...
What is going on?
I've never seen anything like this in all my days. That's 79 people by my count.
Perfect.
All right. Well, glad that's over. All right. Stephon Diggs visiting the Patriots. They need to get receivers. They have none. Literally none for Drake May. They got to get receivers.
What do they have left money-wise? Because they've been pretty active in the early going here in free agency.
No, it's a good point. Give it. And let's see. I think they're still in a pretty good spot. Let's see. Cap space. Patriots came into it with the most. So I don't know if this has been updated.
Oh, okay. So the Patriots they still have $84 million left?
Yeah, this is on over the cap says 73, 81.5.
Whew. Okay, so they could afford Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, they can afford yes.
I
They just aren't paying any they have no receivers at all.
So you would think if Hunter falls or your boy out of Arizona, that could be a prime opportunity in the first round.
A lot of people thought that, and then now people seem to be down on T-Mac. They don't like the time that he ran his 40 in, although some people said he ran in the 4.4s, which had everybody all excited. So it's very hard to know exactly what people are thinking there. Right now, the starting receivers for the Patriots are Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, and Kayshon Boutte.
Huh.
They signed Mac Hollins in free agency.
They should sign J-Mac over here.
They draft Jalen Polk in the second round last year, but he did not have a good rookie season. They need weapons badly. Badly. They made a lot of moves on offense, but I'm talking about.
Yeah, defensively they shored up a lot of things. Offensively, I mean, you've got a quarterback. Might be helpful to put a few weapons around him.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing how thin the Browns are on offense right now. Defense, you've got much more depth.
The Commies just signed Michael Gallup.
The former receiver out of
Dallas.
Baylor from the Dallas Cowboys. Gallup had a couple of good years in the league. I want to say at least one really good year.
Yeah, then he got hurt, I think.
He hasn't really been much of a factor of late. 400 yards, 3 straight seasons. 2019, he had 1,107 yards, averaged 16.8 catch, 6 touchdowns. Followed that up the next year with 843 and 5. Then he gets hurt in 2021, and he just has not been as explosive or as utilized since then. 445, 424, 418 the last 3 seasons. But Washington, good weapon. Another opportunity. Why not? Why not?
Absolutely.
So he had retired, Gallup. Did you know this?
No.
He had retired 8 months ago. Didn't play in 2024. Last played in 2023. So that's a we'll see. That's a sign, and we'll see what we've got going on there. The Houston Texans have extended defensive end Danielle Hunter on a 1-year, $35.6 million contract. So does that put him ahead of Max Crosby?
Not sure.
I think it does.
They've been busy. They've been spending
If not,
some
it's
money.
right there.
They took off a guy that you had yesterday.
Yeah, Titans have also agreed to a 1-year deal with free agent tackle Cam Robinson. The best available free agent is off of the board, and I always want the Browns to sign him because then you could just kind of relax a little bit, draft-wise, and you can focus on the weapons. Speaking of a weapon who's never really kind of hit on all cylinders in the NFL, wide receiver Rondale Moore signed a 1-year contract with the Minnesota Vikings after missing the entirety of the 2024 season with an ankle injury. He suffered in joint practices with the Dolphins as a member of the Falcons. Remember, he started his career with the Arizona Cardinals. When we come back, Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports will join us. We'll go through his mock draft, see what he does for the Browns, see what he does around the Browns, what he does in the AFC North. All that and much, much more coming your way here. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. All right, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Nathan Zagura now happy to head out onto the Twisted Tea hotline presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, an official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. And we are joined now by Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports on the Twisted Tea hotline. Chris, how are you doing today? And thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great, guys. We are fully in draft season, and it's great to talk. I'm in Buffalo with someone that's not too far away, that knows that you are always in a state of rebuilding, and that I do think brighter days are ahead for the Cleveland Browns.
I certainly hope so. We have a lot of great friends in Buffalo, including the man who birthed this show from his loins, the great Vic Carucci, a Buffalo icon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So, yes, we are hoping that this will be the draft that gets us out of it. Before we talk draft, though, I want to ask you, we were just talking about this earlier on the show today. Is this the quietest free agency we've had in the NFL in a long, long time?
Absolutely. I mean, it lasted a couple days. There weren't a lot of marquee big signings. I mean, Milton Williams going from the Eagles to the Patriots, them swooping in last minute when it looked like he was going to sign with the Panthers. Not a lot of other external free agents being signed by teams. And I think teams, and more so players, understand, hey, look, I'm going to maybe not take the absolute most I can get on, in theory, on the open market, and I'm going to stay with the team and the system and my family in the same city that I'm familiar with. We saw a lot of those retentions happen actually before free agency even started.
Yeah, and that was part of it. People just did not want to allow their top talent to hit the market. And so we've had this kind of quiet free agency period. We were going through the Browns roster. Browns could field a legitimate defense today. They cannot field a legitimate offense. And in your first four picks for the Cleveland Browns, you have three of them on the offensive side. When I did my mocks, I went all four because I just think this team, when you're the last scoring offense in the league, you need weapons, weapons, weapons. The big one we're going to talk about, though, is obviously at the top of the draft. And what I wanted to ask you about was Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans, pick 1 overall. The first thing I want to ask you is, were you at the Combine?
I was at the Combine, yes.
Yeah, didn't you feel, or I did anyway, maybe we talked to different people, but coming out of the Combine, it felt like the sentiment was that the Titans were not going to be taking a quarterback at 1 overall. Was that your sense of it?
It did feel that. Yeah, no, it did feel that, and there was, then the Abdul Carter news came down that he has the foot injury, and then weirdly, and this is kind of a phenomenon that seems to happen every draft cycle, no games happen, nothing really happens, but then it gets to be a general sentiment can change, maybe because the Titans were so quiet in free agency themselves at the quarterback position, and we've seen most of the dominoes fall at that position. I think more people just realize, hey, they probably just have to pick a quarterback with the first pick.
And right, and I understand that logic. Their free agency, they've done nothing at that position to address it, so it does seem to hint that maybe that's the way it's going to go. Cam Ward, kind of just in your quarterback evaluations, what has separated him? Because it feels like for most, I'd say it's probably 80% of the community absolutely thinks Cam Ward is the number one quarterback in the class, and there's still probably, I'd say, 20%, maybe 10% that thinks it's Shedeur Sanders. What is it about Cam Ward for you, and why was he the pick for the Titans?
Yeah, just comparing those two quarterbacks, and you're right, those are the consensus top two. Most people do like Cam Ward more than Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward, to me, has a little bit of a stronger arm, and he has more of that improvisation that I think every team is looking for at the quarterback position today. That I don't think either are tremendous athletes, but I think Ward, is a little better at making defenders miss in the pocket and still getting an accurate ball down the field. And why I went with him to the Titans was just for that exact reason, that their head coach, Brian Callahan, I don't think he's totally on the hot seat where if they get off to a bad start, he would be fired like less than 20 games into his coaching career. But I think he needs an at least close to 500 season and just better quarterback play overall to keep his job. So that's one where there is a little bit of a weird overlap because he's in year 2. Their new GM, Mike Borgonzi, is in year 1. Is that the player, Cam Ward, that their new GM wants to say, this is my first ever pick with the number 1 overall selection? In most drafts, I don't think Cam Ward would be the slam dunk number one overall selection like we've really had the last 4 or 5 drafts. But he probably is the best quarterback, and that position still carries more value than any other on the field.
There's no doubt that it does. And one of the things I was curious about, and I had a lot of discussions with people at the Combine whose opinions I respect a great deal, and yours is one of those that I respect as well, who said something I thought interesting. If this draft was 10 years ago, that the way Shedeur Sanders plays the game and his strengths, 10 years ago in the NFL, he would have been the top quarterback on everybody's board. But because the league has become such a chunk play and almost kind of second play league, and what I mean by that is out of structure, your primary option is not there and you've got to go and kind of create on your own, that's why Cam Ward is regarded as the better quarterback now, because in some ways it's the changes in the pressure packages, stylistically how defenses are able to get to quarterbacks that has made it harder for quarterbacks to be necessarily the guys like a Brady or a Breeze or even a Peyton Manning who they just dominated by understanding everything in structure and going through their progressions and delivering the football on time and accurately.
1,000%. I mean, I didn't have that exact conversation with anyone at the Combine, but it makes a ton of sense that Shedeur Sanders has a higher floor. I think he wants to throw from in the pocket. He wants to be in rhythm. But, yeah, he's kind of playing the drop-back passing game of the 90s and into the 2000s and early 2010s. And I like to call it the Patrick Mahomes line. After Mahomes, and then even in the next draft class with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, it was like, yeah, you want a big-time athlete who you're not going to care if he throws 2 or 3 passes across his body against his momentum because he's going to make ridiculous things happen way more frequently with the arm strength and the athleticism. So I think that philosophy or that thought that Sanders is more of the traditional quarterback who would have been liked 10 to 15 years ago more than Ward is absolutely spot on.
How much do you factor when you're doing things like this? And we'll get to the Browns pick in a second, because I have been adamant about, here we're picking second, let's take a shot at a quarterback. Let's do that. And you'll talk through why you went with Abdul Carter over Shedeur. Do you think, like for a Shedeur, one of the things that kind of went in my evaluation of him, and again, talking to people, that a Shanahan, Stefanski, we're getting back to those roots, McVay, Kevin O'Connell, that's the scheme that he will be the best in the National Football League.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm lower on Shedeur Sanders than, I don't want to say most, because like you mentioned, it seems like the vast majority likes Ward higher than him or more than him. But I'm evaluating just based on a 30,000-foot view of the entire league. What you just mentioned, the play action, the bootlegs, throwing in rhythm, not really having a big desire or need to create outside of structure. Think Brock Purdy in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. That's where Shedeur Sanders, I think, could not only become a really good quarterback, but come in and start immediately, where you don't need, all right, hey, maybe he's not going to start until October or November, or maybe it's a Jalen Hurts type situation where you don't really want him to start in year one. So that adds some intrigue, and I could understand if the Browns ultimately do pick him at number 2. My own evaluation of just the league at large would say that's too early. But from the Cleveland Browns perspective, with Kevin Stefanski and that play-action bootleg-heavy system that's very structured, it would make a lot more sense for the Browns and any of the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, which is certainly growing, but it's not the entire league.
Sure.
It would make a lot more sense for him to be picked by one of those teams as opposed to some other clubs that really kind of lean on that athleticism and improvisation from their quarterbacks.
If you were the Browns, and given that your evaluation, also but what you said there, that Shedeur actually seems to be a very good fit for what we do. His skill set matches up well with what we would want out of a quarterback. If Cam Ward, though, is your clear number 1, are you considering doing what you need to do to get to number 1 to get Cam Ward in this draft?
See, I wouldn't. I think for as much as I believe that with Andrew Berry and with Kevin Stefanski, and it's vital to have a really good GM that's smart and a really quarterback-friendly head coach, and the Browns certainly have their warts, but they have those 2 pieces in place. I do think that there are brighter days ahead, and it's not 6 or 7 years down the road. I don't know if I would be, not that they would have to mortgage the future to move up one pick, but I don't know if I would be too keen on trading future picks in 2026 potentially to get Cam Ward. I don't know if either of those two, Ward or Sanders, are worthy of a trade up, but the weird caveat here is they would only have to move up one selection. I certainly, though, could understand. I mean, it's one thing for me to think of this theoretically. It's another for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to be like, we just need better quarterback play. Like, we're going to do this. We know it might be not the perfect quarterback to trade up for, but let's just get someone who's young, who's cost controlled, and has upside on the roster, and we feel like we can get the most out of them. So the Browns, I'll never be against them rolling the dice, like you're saying, at the quarterback position. But as an evaluator, I would say these are not the quarterbacks that you would traditionally do that for. And in most drafts, you have 2 or 3 of those types that are worth trading up for. We saw it last year, and we're probably going to see it next year too.
With that being said, you have the Titans taking Cam Ward 1. You go Abdul Carter 2. If there's one room that I actually feel decent about for the Browns right now, it is the edge room, obviously with Myles Garrett, but I thought Isaiah McGuire played well last year. Alex Wright, you take a gamble on a former first-rounder and try on Shoyinka, and you still got Oba Okoronkwo here. What is it about Abdul Carter that makes him so special that a team who was the worst offense in the NFL has such a valuable asset and is going to put it on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, that's a great question. And now I will say there's a caveat here. I do a mock draft once every week, so I try to see how different picks at the top would create a ripple effect throughout an entire first round, and then this most recent mock, a 3-round mock draft. I think just because Carter is a premier prospect at probably the second or third most important position in the NFL, I think learning from Myles Garrett for the first couple of seasons of his career, the nuances of how to win in a variety of ways would be vital for him and could really ascend him to that all-pro level. And even though I just said that, he already has a plethora of ways to get to the quarterback, affect the pocket, burst and bend first and foremost, a nice collection of pass rushing moves to keep an offensive tackle honest, and there's pretty good speed to power conversion to his game. So if all the health checks out, and I can't ever factor that in too much because I don't know any of the medical information or know how much it would impact a player's longevity and things like that, I think Abdul Carter is as clean as you're going to get in most cases at the edge rusher position as a draft prospect.
So that would put the Browns absolutely loaded there, the tandem of Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter. Just as we kind of go through a little bit, I'm going to stop on a few people in the first round here. You have Shedeur going 7 to the Jets, who just signed Justin Fields. And at 7, to me, if he's worth it at 7, I'm all in it too. But kind of walk through that one, which certainly would be, for the New York media market, I would imagine, a tremendous theater. And did he consider Shedeur to the Giants as well? Sorry about that. Did he consider?
Yeah, I certainly did. I feel like the Giants at this stage are even like further from where the Browns or this Browns regime is in terms of they're down the road of we just need competent quarterback play. We need it so badly. If we don't start off well, if we're Joe Shane and Brian Dable, we're probably going to lose our jobs. So that whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or someone else on the free agent market or trade market, that they're going to try to bring in, even Jameis Winston, bring in a veteran. That's why I didn't go with Shedeur Sanders to the Giants. And for the Jets, I just think it's such a fresh start there with Aaron Glenn as the head coach, a new general manager. Yes, they bring in Justin Fields, but it feels like the league as a whole knows that he's not a long-term 5 to 10 year starter that you're going to plug in and just be fine at the position. And this would create a little bit of a circus, certainly a lot of drama like you mentioned, but it would also insulate Sanders a little where he wouldn't be forced into the starting lineup immediately. So I do, though, understand what you're saying, that if he gets picked at 7, you'd probably on draft night be like, why wouldn't the Browns have just picked him at 2? But I ultimately, and I've certainly sent Sanders to the Browns in previous mocks, this one I had him falling a little bit, almost outside of the top 10.
All right, you made a couple of picks that I love, and we don't need to get into them too much, but I like it. T-Mac to the Niners at 11, and then Tyler Warren to the Colts at 14. And if that happens, and that's kind of been one of the things I've looked at for them all off season, Do they have kind of one of the most underrated good skill groups in the league, and that maybe Dan Dimes could kind of resuscitate things there? When you talk about, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, you'd have Tyler Warren at tight end, and then you got Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, who led the league in yards per catch. You got Downs there as well, Adonai Mitchell. I mean, it's kind of would be I feel like kind of a sleepy, loaded skill group there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And two things I think about that, if that's ultimately where the Colts go, is you're right. They would have one of the most low-key or underrated offensive skill position groups in the AFC. We would maybe, if you're looking at Danny Dimes, maybe he could be that, at times competent starter that he was with the Giants. And if it's ultimately, or if it's Anthony Richardson as a starter, the Colts would know what they have with him by the end of this third season, because they would have a very diverse collection, with Josh Downs being the underneath guy. A.D. Mitchell is the young route runner on the outside. Alec Pierce can get downfield as well as any big wideout in football. And then Ty Warren, who was the focal point at Penn State and was so good just using his physicality to win at the catch point. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor and a pretty good offensive line. If they didn't see drastic improvement from Anthony Richardson, they will have known, all right, we tried to do the best we could to put talent around him, and he just wasn't the quarterback.
No doubt about that. Talking with Chris Trapasso from CBSSports.com about his mock draft, a 3-rounder. Browns go Abdul Carter at 2. We're just going through the first round real quickly. I hate Malachi Starks to the Bengals. I'll just say that out loud. No, I'm in no interest in that whatsoever. People who are big fans of Justin Herbert would love Colston Loveland going to the Chargers there at later in the first round as well. All right, let's get to the second round, and now is where it gets interesting. So now you say, okay, now we're taking the swing at quarterback, and it's Jackson Dart. Now, we've seen a lot of mocks recently that have Jackson Dart making his way into the first round. What is it that you like about Jackson Dart? By the way, I also did a mock, and you're going to laugh at me now as I'm looking at this. 47 to the Cardinals. You have Trey Harris, Ole Miss. I wanted him for the Browns in the third round, so maybe you're dashing my dreams there. But nonetheless, Jackson Dart, his quarterback, speaking of Trey Harris, why 33? Do you think it's possible there? And what do you like about him? And can he be the answer? And the reason I ask this is the Browns have done this ad nauseum. Not take a quarterback early. We've only taken a quarterback in the top 10 twice since 1999, Tim Couch, Baker Mayfield. But they'll pummel a quarterback late in the first round. They'll pummel a quarterback in the second round. They'll go that route, and it has not worked out. Why could Jackson Dart be different?
Well, because a lot of the reasons that I am a little concerned about Shedeur Sanders' draft profile, I think Dart checks those boxes. That I think he's a clearly better athlete than Shedeur Sanders. He was a highly touted recruit, transferred to Ole Miss, started for 3 straight seasons in the SEC, played in a lot of big games. They never really quite got over the hump and won the SEC or anything like that, but they were routinely competitive against the Alabamas and the Georgias. I like that he has kind of like quarterback amnesia, where he can throw an interception down the middle. On the next drive, he's going to make the same throw again, and he's going to be a little bit better with his ball placement and throw a 30-yard strike on that play. So I like that he's aggressive. Playing with Lane Kiffin, the offense is a little gimmicky. It's a lot of RPOs and just go routes, but his footwork looks pretty good. I don't think he's someone that would be totally opposed to being in a more structured system, and it probably could help him a little, because I think at times he gets overly aggressive and wants to shoot everything down the field when there's a check down or there's a throw in the flat that would be available, and you would feel like Kevin Stefanski would hammer that home, like, hey, you're young, you're in this structured offense, just take the 7-yard completion, live to see another down. And I just like how his pocket navigation, his ability to elude defenders, and never really look overly flustered, even against those marquee, talented defenses in the SEC. So I think it's not surprising that we're starting to hear some momentum of Jackson Dart potentially being a first-round pick, because he's someone that didn't have a lot of hype early on, and then people got to watching the film. They're like, actually, this is a pretty talented improvisational quarterback that has a pretty strong arm and is pretty accurate. I don't understand why he can't be in the same conversation with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward.
So I've started to watch him. I was obviously way more in on Shedeur and Cam Ward and watched him. I like a lot of what I see. He does make some big time throws. He makes some ill-timed, I would say, bad interceptions.
Yes.
It felt. The one thing though that I couldn't get around, and this is the notes are the notes and the tape is the tape, but there is something from a statistical standpoint that I just thought was a little bit interesting. He was under 60% completions in 5 of the 8 SEC games. And it just in college today, that to me, and I could be completely wrong about it, but that just seems a little alarming. Do you have a reason for that? Was there something in tape that I'm not seeing that gives you comfort around that? Because you look at some of the other guys, I know Shedeur doesn't have a single game under 60% completions, and I don't think Cam did either. Maybe he had 1. But it was quite a few for Jackson Dart.
No, that's a really good question, Nate, and it's important to bring that up because, and I'm not at all insinuating that you believe that completion percentage is the end-all be-all at the quarterback spot for evaluations, but from what I remember off those games when he was facing the better competition in the SEC, it was almost like Lane Kiffin was just like, hey, we're going to throw a couple screens, but we're going to chuck it deep like 15 times a game.
Yep.
So if you look at the average depth of target
he's
for
good at that.
Sanders,
Yep.
I actually just and that's what I was getting at, where I think Dart's, some of his reasoning why I have like a second-round grade
idea if you can.
My notes, like decision-making in some opportune times, not very good. Just like you mentioned, like you saw it too. I think being in a more structured system with a coach that has, that would help to say, look, here's your triangle read. You don't always have to throw the corner route. Why don't you just throw it to our back, throw it to Jerome Ford, let him get 7 yards, and now it's 2nd and 3, where it felt like the completion percentage was probably a bit lower because Lane Kiffin is like bubble screen, go route, post route. So I think that's probably why his completion percentage was a little bit lower than his contemporaries.
Certainly makes sense. You are listening to 850 ESPN Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet. We're talking with Chris Trapasso on the Twisted Tea hotline. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Let's keep it twisted, Cleveland. All right, Chris, we appreciate the time. You've been very generous with that. I was just having fun talking with you, to be honest with you. I love talking ball. We'll go real quick through your other 2 picks for the Browns. I love this one, Travion Henderson. In my mind, you might need him at 33, but I love this pick to the Cleveland Browns. What did you like about Travion and the fit? When you're saying check it down to Jerome Ford, in my mind, I was thinking, not after this draft. You're checking it down to Travion Henderson.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil the pick too early. That was my thought, too. That's like literally the exact plan that I had with these Brown selections. Travion Henderson is up there as one of the best receiving backs in this league, or in this class, I should say. Good hands, great vision, and just so explosive. He ran sub-4, I think he ran 4.41 or 4.42 at the combine. Very, very fast. Also a big-time recruit, just explosive. And I think the Browns adding more explosion in their backfield and just to the offense in general, like you mentioned, that was one of the worst in the league, where you can take a dump off and turn it into a 40-yard gain. That's where Travion Henderson really thrived at Ohio State.
He certainly did. And then finally, listen, right? We're not too far apart here. Weapons. You get Colorado State wide receiver Torrey Horton. What can you tell us about Torrey Horton and how he could project here?
So productive in college, and I'm not trying to say that or insinuate that I'm a box score scout, but I think at wide receiver, if you have 2, 3, 4 years where you are the high volume target in your offense, you go over 1,000 yards, catch a bunch of touchdowns, unless you're like a low caliber athlete that doesn't have the physical skill set to play in the NFL, chances are you're going to be a pretty quality prospect in general. And Torrey Horton tested very well at the combine, dealt with some injuries in his final season at Colorado State, but before that was a little bit of a bigger body who on film shows the ability to get open. He can run the entire route tree. He has good, hip fakes, shoulder fakes, the route salesmanship that you want to see. And I think he's pretty good in those contested catch situations. So there's nothing about his game that is like spectacular, but as a third rounder to add and learn from Jerry Jeudy, I think they're kind of similar wide receivers, and 2 that I think could be almost interchangeable in their roles where they align. He can play on the outside. It would just be a rock-solid wide receiver to add to this wide receiver group.
I love that. Chris, this is great stuff. By the way, you're going to make our producer, Jason Gibbs, very happy. Harold Fannin Gibbe goes 57th in the second round out of Gibbe's alma mater, Bowling Green. One guy that, and maybe I missed it because I was glancing quickly, when I watched a lot of Cam Ward, I came away very impressed with Elijah Arroyo, the tight end. Do you have him in the top 3 rounds, or is he a day 3 guy for you?
I don't think I put him in this exact 3-rounder. Dealing with an injury during the pre-draft process, that usually doesn't help a prospect. But no, on film, he's as smooth and fluid as you're going to get at the tight end spot in this class. A little bit underweight relative to his height.
Yep.
But if you want explosiveness and big plays, you're right. I mean, you saw it. Cam Ward looked to him often, and he was the one taking shallow crosses 40, 50 yards down the field. So he's an intriguing guy. I just wish, and I'm sure he does as well, and all NFL teams, that he would have been healthy, could have, worked out and played more in the Senior Bowl and worked out at the Combine, because he kind of felt like one of those players who could have erupted in Indy, and then we certainly would have been talking about him as a first or a second-round pick.
Listen, I'll take him at the top of the 4th round in your mock draft. That would be just fine with me. Chris, thank you so much for the generosity of your time. Enjoyed talking ball with you, and everybody check out his mock draft at cbssports.com. Thanks. Have a great day, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, Nate. Thanks a lot.
All right, there it is. Chris Trapasso. He's got the Browns. Abdul Carter at 2, Jackson Dart 33, Travion Henderson 67, and Colorado State wide receiver Torrey Horton, very productive. Sounds like maybe another Colorado State receiver was very productive that made his way to the Browns, Gibbe.
From Colorado State?
Yeah.
You'd be talking about Hollywood
Higgins. Yes, indeed. I most certainly would. The man who walked the red carpet with tremendous panache. All right, that was a lot of fun. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to keep rolling around here in hour number 2, talking draft. Mel Kiper, his draft teleconference from yesterday. Lots of good information on the quarterbacks and much, much more. Plus, we'll get some March Madness updates. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Looking for more ways to connect with the dog pound and spoil a furry friend in your life? Join Barking Backers, presented by Milkbone, the Cleveland Browns fan club for dogs. View membership options and join today at barkingbackers.com. All right, when you think the draft, you think a draft analyst, you got to think of Mel Kiper. The hair finally coiffed, the takes flaming hot. Here is his draft teleconference from yesterday. Mel Kiper.
Mel, appreciate your time.
You're down 10.5.
Consistent in having Shador as QB1. Why do you maybe project Cam Ward to the Titans at 1 if that's the case?
Well, a couple of things. I think, for me, it was always been Shador, but the consensus around the league, and I'm not trying to match what the league's doing, and the mocks certainly aren't trying to provide the rating that I have. The mock is strictly about what the NFL may do, and obviously the rankings board, I have Shador ahead of Cam just slightly, but most have that I've spoken to, and I will speak to everybody, obviously, just that you sample a few people and you see what the consensus is, and I think Yates feels the same way, that Cam Ward is the consensus number one quarterback. Why? Because he has a stronger arm and he's more mobile, and of course Shador took a lot of sacks, but when I looked at the numbers, Shador's sacks over the last 2 years were similar to what Cam had 2 years at Washington State before he went to Miami this past year. So I think when you look at Cam, I think for Tennessee, the arm strength, the angles, all the different arm angles he throws from, the mobility that he has. He had 17 rushing touchdowns over the last 3 years. Cam Ward did. All that leads to that. And of course, Shador's only 6'1.5", 212. He doesn't have explosive arm strength or explosive legs. So you're talking about a traditional old-school pocket passer that's going to need help. He's going to need an offensive line in front of him, just like Brady needed coming out of Michigan. That was my comment when he was selected in the end of the 6th round. He needed an offensive line. He wasn't going to be able to maneuver like a Cam Ward can, or even what Mahomes does, slipping and sliding the way he does and moving around, and certainly not to the extent of any of the other great mobile quarterbacks like Josh and Lamar and others. So I think for Shador, you got to know what you're getting and be happy with a old school traditional pocket passer. And with Cam, he gives you that kind of new wave where you can, if something's not there, he breaks down, he can create. So he'll be much more creative in that regard.
Hey, Mel, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
You mentioned Shador, obviously, and it seems like we've spent about 3 months talking about everything that Shador can't do and why he's not the number one quarterback. You have not wavered off of where you've been. With the Giants at 3, having him go there, just your thoughts on that pairing, and what have you seen from Shador that seems to be on a different track than so many people are talking about, of how he's not in today's NFL as a quarterback, like you said, that old school pocket passer.
Exactly. And I think, it's at this time of the year when you get closer to the draft and these jobs are on the line and it's the pressure, you go with the guy who has the more of an impressive physical skill set, and that would be Cam Ward. I get that, but I think it doesn't always determine who the best quarterback is in the NFL, and certainly some really good, the greatest of all time. Think about Johnny Unitas, Tom Brady, weren't going to beat you with their legs. And you can still win from the pocket. So I think that's still something that Shador knows how to do, and he does very effectively. And Shador also with Deion, and the same thing when you think about when Eli with Archie, I think being able to handle pressure and expectations, he does that very well. This whole circus atmosphere people think will come with Shador is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. Deion was a great player. He was a great teammate. He was all about working hard, preparing, doing it the right way. Shador is the same way. So to me, the Giants are a really good fit. Dabo and Shane can pick their own quarterback. If they love him, you take him. If you don't, you pass. But somebody's got to play quarterback in a division with Hurts and Jaden, who's going to be phenomenal, and he already has shown that, and certainly Prescott. And the NFC is growing every year in terms of quarterbacks. Caleb's added to this division. Jordan Love emerged. Bryce Young emerged last year after that rough start, and Jaden was great. And Michael Penix Jr. maybe they hope very, very good. So the NFC's catching up to the AFC a little bit. So if you're a team like the Giants, you gotta at some point get that quarterback. And there's a lot of other quarterbacks other than the top 3, which would go down to Jackson Dart. There's that group of Will Howard, Tyler Shuck, Kyle McCord, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Curtis Rourke, Riley Leonard, Dylan Gabriel, that group too. If you like one of those, you can wait a little bit. But for the Giants, if you love Shador Sanders and you're the Giants, at 3, if Cam Ward's gone, and if you try to trade up from 3 to 1 to get Cam Ward, and if Tennessee doesn't want to move out of there, then they have to decide if they love Shador Sanders enough to take him at 3.
Hey, Mel, nobody has a bigger mess at quarterback than the Browns. So why do you have them taking Abdul Carter instead of Shador?
Jeff, it's a great question because I thought about that, and Adam Schefter thinks it could be maybe Shador, but I kept talking to teams. I'm thinking, okay, if nobody seems to think these quarterbacks belong up there, then are both going to go 1-2. And for Cleveland, Kenny Pickett's there. We don't know what Kenny Pickett is. He showed some good things, and then he fell off, and they moved on. I think when you look at Shador, there's not that consensus that he is deserving of being that high a pick. So for Cleveland, the weather conditions, you could say, well, the Giants, you have to deal with that as well. But you have to think Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore. That was one. Okay, 6'1", 212, doesn't have the great arm strength. Would that scare them off? I just went with a gut on that. You could go with Shador to Cleveland, but everybody was saying that's too high. It's too high. So I went with a guy that I thought Jeff. I thought pair Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett, the wide nines, talk about getting after the quarterback and have somebody the doubling, Myles. Now you got Abdul Carter, who's a phenomenal player. You got to beat these great quarterbacks in the AFC too. In addition to getting your own. So I thought a good way to go about it, to attack it, is to get a special. There's two special players in this draft, only, in my opinion. And that's Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Those are the two special players. I'm perceived by special. There's going to be other guys that emerge, but I'm saying going into the draft, I think those are the two guys that we all agree are the two. You want to call them generational talents? Go ahead and do that. Those are the two guys that are special. And I thought with Garrett, having that other guy opposite Garrett that could be close to as good is something that I think they would prefer to have and like to have.
Hey, Mel, appreciate the time. I'm curious if Quinn Ewers did anything at the combine to impact your view of him, and maybe if there's anything you're interested in learning about him still as his pro day comes up next week.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Quinn's in that tier after you say the top two, and then Jackson Dart, and then Tyler Shucks moved up, and then you have that group of, as I mentioned, Kyle McCord and Will Howard, and you get into with Quinn Ewers and that mix as well, Riley Leonard and Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Milroe, all those guys. But Quinn, I wouldn't say leveled off. I think when you look at his ability, his arm talent, it's not a howitzer, but it's there. He can make the throws. He tends to loft throws and take a little off. I haven't seen him, like you say, muscling throws, and they talk about powering throws. Everybody said, and that's pretty obvious that you haven't seen him do that. When he needs to throw that 95-mile-an-hour fastball, he takes a little off, throws at 88. So to me, I think you know what you're getting with Quinn at this stage of the game. He's certainly has the potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Is he going to be the Kenny Pickett type who, you take, but you'd say, is he good enough to be great? I don't see that potential to be, and that's what everybody's looking for. You're not looking just for average play at quarterback any longer. So if you're not looking for a single or even a double at this stage of the game. You're looking for a triple, home run, preferably a grand slam. Home run, grand slam is what teams want. They always say, I want a quarterback to play at a consistently high level. That's telling you all you need to know. The days of being okay with a single double are over just about. They would surround the quarterback by everything, and we got a pretty good shot. They don't want that. So that's where Quinn kind of falls into maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, when you're okay with a single double, fine. I don't view him as a grand slam home run, and I think that's what's going to push him down just a little bit.
Mel, thanks so much for doing this as always. With Cam Ward, he started at Incarnate Word. I mean, did you break down his film from there and see any potential that he could do what he did at Washington State and Miami early? And kind of building off that last question, for my second question would be Saquon Barkley and these running backs this year, how much did that pull the draft value up for Genty, Omarion, some of these running backs?
Well, I think in terms, let's get to Cam Ward first. Bill, I think when you look at, you mentioned Incarnate Word and, the sack rate at that point, the interceptions, he threw 10, I believe, that year. But you saw the talent, and you saw the arm talent. I watched him there. And then he goes to Washington State, and you saw the exact same thing. That's why I was getting calls saying, Cam Ward's interesting guy. I mean, he can throw the football with anybody. And then at Washington State, he was sacked a lot. But, he's throwing touchdown passes. He's rushing for touchdowns. He's showing the ability to beat a defense with his legs. And the completion percentage was up around 67%. He did the exact same thing at Miami. So he played in 3 different programs at a high level. And he cut down on the sacks this year, even though he was sacks, in some games where I thought he was just a little nonchalant at times in the pocket, where you got to be able to get the ball out. And he was afforded an opportunity to make plays that in the NFL you're not going to be able to. So it's just things have to be a little quicker. Everybody's got to be a tick faster. And he does put the ball in harm's way at times. He has had shown that he could be reckless and careless with the football, but he improved on that this year. So there's a lot to like. Arm talent is, like I say, undeniable. He's got the mobility. He can beat you with his legs. He had 12 rushing touchdowns, 17 over the last 3 years. So, there's a lot to like about Cam Ward. And to say he's not deserving, I'm probably below higher. I'm at 6 on the big board. I have Shedeur at 5. So 5 and 6 are the quarterbacks. Some have them even down further than that. And that's why there's not a consensus on these quarterbacks going high, because the ratings are not even close to where you have to be the first, second pick in the draft. So that's the tough part, Bill, to answer the question about projecting where these two are going to go. One team, all you have to do is love one of these quarterbacks and you're going to take them. Tennessee seems like it's Ward. Who loves Shedeur enough to take him? Who loves Dart enough to take him? Or Shuck? That's going to be an individual preference, because it's not a consensus on any of these guys.
There is Mel Kiper. Lots of good stuff there. He likes Shedeur best in this draft. A lot of people like Cam Ward best in this draft. The Browns pick second. And we heard even Chris Trapasso say, this is the perfect system for Shedeur Sanders. How this plays out will be so interesting. I just think the Browns have got to find a way to have conviction. And if they don't, then you can't do it. But if you have conviction, to have conviction about one of those two quarterbacks. And if it's only one, figure out what it takes to get to number one and get the quarterback that you are convicted about. We need some more mailbag questions, so get them in right now. Gibby, did you put the ask out on social? All right, do we have some people? We have anything good? Anything exciting?
We do, my friend.
Oh, Gibby's excited. All right, we're good.
We'll do that next.
The mailbag, wrapping it up here on a Thursday edition. March Madness, Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet. All right, welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Time now for the mailbag. Submit your questions to our Twitter handle at Browns_daily. This is our X handle now. Either way, same thing. The mailbag is presented by Cross Country Mortgage, the official mortgage partner of the Cleveland Browns. When it comes to financing, they always get you home. Visit ccm.com today. Equal housing opportunity, NMLS 3029. For the mailbag, Gibbe, update me here. What's happened in the madness?
Purdue's winning 66-58 over High Point with like 5 minutes to go.
Okay, so that's not done yet. And Creighton
4
won.
minutes, just under the 4-minute timeout now.
Creighton is your first winner in the tournament. They take down Louisville.
All right, that takes one team out of the Sweet 16 for me. We should have just gone with Auburn. Why didn't we want to host Auburn Daily? I wanted to.
Well, Auburn plays next.
They're going to win.
I don't know why you would. Yeah, I don't know why you would.
Why do you want to host Louisville Daily? I guess Louisville's a fun city.
Bourbon.
Valhalla. We talked into it. Bourbon. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are the other ones, G-Man?
Wisconsin's up 40-32 on Montana at half.
Wisconsin up 40-32 on Montana at half.
Then Houston 36, SIU Edwardsville
36-18 Houston rolling SIUE.
Who is?
Houston, the 1 seed.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well,
Doing
at least
what
we
they're
had that
supposed
one
to
right
do.
until we decided we'd rather vacation in Spokane, Washington over Houston, Texas.
Still think that was a good decision.
This bracket is toast already. It's already toast.
I don't know. I can't wait to see it up against the G-Man and J-Max. All right. Tweet your questions to us at Browns_daily. We have 13 minutes, and it starts now.
Baby.
Robert Pace, with the news on Conklin's contract, I say re-sign Chubb now as in today. What say you? I would be into that. Very much so.
I'm just looking at him right now. He looks spectacular.
Yes,
I really hope it happens. I really hope it happens. And I mean, at this point, it feels like
I think the longer
why
it
not?
goes, the better the chance he's back.
I think that's fair. Although I just say let's stop it and bring him in.
Come on back.
Come on back. Come home.
Chris tweets at the show. He asked about Chubb, but he has 3 questions.
By the way,
Question
Chubb is the number one thing. I don't know about for you when you like. That's the number one thing that I'm being asked about. What are we
Yes.
going to do at number 2, and when are we signing Nick Chubb?
Yes.
Those are the questions. It's a combo. It's a left right boom boom. Boom boom. It's a combo. Platter.
Sure. Chris tweets at the show. Give 5 good reasons not to sign Flacco over other vet QBs.
Who does he mean? Like who?
I would assume any of the other veterans that are still available.
So
He's a proven winner.
But he wants 5 reasons not to.
Not to sign Flacco.
Yeah.
Well, he does give the ball away.
I mean, that's it. And he's older. Those are the only 2 things. Yeah. Really, it comes down to his age and that he's not a potential long-term solution. I'm not saying Carson Wentz is a potential long-term solution, but at least he's still a relatively speaking young man.
Correct.
Carson Wentz is 32. So, in quarterback years, you can still have another good 4 years or so. Joe Flacco is 40. By the way, turned 40 January 16th. Happy birthday, Joe Flacco. So I think that's really it. That's it.
Okay.
I'd love if Joe Flacco, if the Browns draft a quarterback at 2, you have Kenny Pickett and you have Joe Flacco. I think that's a wonderful quarterback.
Perfect.
Room. I'm totally fine with that.
Yep.
Totally fine with it.
Final question from Chris. What is the lowest pick you would trade back to? Thanks and love the show. I don't know if I want to trade.
I would rather trade back if I'm getting some significant assets for it than not take a quarterback at 2.
Fair.
And at that point, to me, I think I'd want to go down. I'd want to stay in the top 10, top 7 maybe. Jets, Raiders. That's the area I'd want to be in.
Alec, Cleveland needs to take Graham at 2. That's the only answer.
Mason Graham, the defensive tackle. To me, I'd rather trade down with
Yes.
somebody and then take Mason Graham.
You don't take a DT at 2.
I'm sure he is a very, very,
He's
very
a good player.
But
not. I think you could probably get him at 5 or 6.
I just think Abdul Carter. If you're taking somebody at 2, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter seem to be a little bit more exciting. But there's no doubt Mason Graham is a very, very good player, and will be, I think, a pretty safe bet to be a very good pick.
Mr. Camtastic, if Sanders falls and we take someone else at 2, when would you consider trading back into the first round? I think the question should be, would you consider trading back into the first round?
Absolutely, I would. It just makes me nervous. It feels like Brady Quinn, Johnny, Brandon Whedon. Now, they were all picked 22, but it just feels like you jump back in and that's what I don't know.
Yeah.
I absolutely, though. I mean, if there's a world where you could draft Travis Hunter and then come back and you still get Shador, at the end of the day, I would be completely fine with that. It feels risky.
Rid of any of the 6th-round picks that we have, because that
I think you'd have to give up if you're going from the 2nd to the 1st. You're probably going to have to give up. You try to make sure that it depends where you're going in the 1st.
Yeah,
but it's probably going to be significant. It's going to have significant cost to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd like to be able to get rid of, maybe do a 3rd. Maybe a future 2nd if you feel that strongly about it. But, yeah, that's probably where you'd be
at. Trey Carey, when will we get G-Man merch? I need a new quarter zip.
G-Man should have merch. It's kind of, I feel like people have dropped the ball, the fact that he hasn't had it yet.
There you go.
I like him.
All right.
G-Man, I'd wear G-Man merch. What would you want on there, G-Man? The big, like a BZG logo? I think it sounded like absolutely is what I heard.
Yes, he said absolutely. Love a Dog Today tweets at the show. Get used to hearing yourself on the radio or seeing yourself on TV. And then he said, this picture showed up on a Facebook reel yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. That's from WrestleMania 30. That comes up all the time. Is it like a Sportskeeda or whatever that place is called? That picture is in all. It's all the time. That was WrestleMania 30 when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker and broke his streak, and that was like total disbelief.
I remember
New Orleans.
Was at Casey Coulis's house.
New Orleans. So that's what that picture's from. That picture makes it. I mean, at least 4 texts a week of somebody being like, "Yo, I saw you in this article." Seriously, like all the time. It's very funny.
Enough from the clown. Gibby, what was the best part of your vacation? Any St. Patrick's Day shenanigans? It was only 71 degrees on St. Patty's Day. It was a beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky. But the retirement community we were at, there were 200 people maybe around the pool. No one was in the pool except for me. And we'll leave it at that.
I like that though, Gib. I like that you were out.
Look,
that's kind of like remember
the
when
pool's
we went,
warm.
Do you remember
the
when we went to
warm.
Tampa?
Huh?
Remember when we went to Tampa for joint practices and we were in like that hotel's pool and we were the only ones in, and then it just started like a deluge.
Yes.
It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. But that pool was amazing.
Oh, it's great.
We can go back there for joint practice.
Yeah,
Practice was in the morning. We did the show. We were done at 3 o'clock for the day.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Not afraid.
Dog Pound Cleveland Brown, you did college mascots yesterday. Power ranked the top 5 toughest mascots for NFL teams. Both Brownie and Chomps qualified. Nah, well, then we would put them in the top 2, Dog Pound.
All right. I would say top 5 toughest. I think I'm showing a little bit of bias here.
Trying to think of mascots. It's not Tutty or whatever the heck it is in Washington. Whatever that thing was that we saw.
No, but they would have been if they were still their previous name.
Well, correct.
So I quickly came up with, and tell me if I'm wrong, Patriots. These are Revolutionary War heroes.
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
49ers were gold prospectors. They're walking around with pickaxes digging for gold. I'm sure they could scrap.
Okay.
You don't like that one as much?
No, I don't.
The Steelers, aren't they supposed to be like steel workers? I feel like that's a pretty tough group.
I will not.
What do you mean?
No.
You're Pittsburgh Gibby. Everybody knows
Nope.
it.
How about a
Pittsburgh Peapaw.
Bengal? How about the Bengal tiger?
So I went with the Lions as an animal.
Oh, all right.
Although a jet, like it just flies over you and drops bombs on you, the New York Jets. Oh, what about the New York Giants? They're giant people.
The G-men.
Giants would have to be on there. They're giants.
Yeah. Falcons.
Oh, the Buccaneers.
Ah.
Yep, Buccaneers.
I like that one.
All right, I'll take the Niners out for a Pirate, and I'll take the Steelers out for a Giant. So we got Giants, Buccaneers, Patriots, and Cowboys.
That works.
Yeah, Jets I feel like Seahawks no, Rams no, Cardinals no, Niners. Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Commanders. So Cowboys and Giants. Oh, the Vikings, dude. Lions out.
I think the Niners have to be out.
Niners are out. It's Giants, because they're giant. Pirates, the Buccaneers. Vikings, the Patriots, Revolutionary War heroes, and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good.
That's it.
That feels pretty good.
I like
feel
that.
Good about that. Yeah, me too.
Jen tweets at the show, did you hate the second season of Severance? I thought it was a huge letdown after the first season finale. There's your meme right there.
What?
Brown's Therapy.
It's been unbelievable. I will agree that the first episode of the second season that immediately comes after the finale, you're like, I did not love that episode. But by episode 2 and then the one where they're out in the wilderness, this season is rolling. I can't wait for tonight. Quite frankly, I think they should have had a little wherewithal and they should have released it last night prior to the tournament. But I can't wait for tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. They say the episodes drop on Fridays, but thanks to a great one of our listeners, they're like, no, actually Thursdays at 9. Guess what? It's right. This one's like a movie. I think it's an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, goodness gracious me. I can't wait. This is as appointment viewing as I recall having anything in quite some time. So, yes, very excited. No, I think the season's been excellent.
All right. Yo, Dr. Z. This is from Victor Run.
Yo.
Solo Dolo today.
Oh, baby.
Seems you may be a wine connoisseur.
Sometimes.
Any good recommendations for around 20 to 30 a bottle? A smooth red, perhaps. Shout out Gibbers and G-Man on the sticks.
Yeah. I like, and it's typically right around 30. I think one of the better value cabs you can get is Beringer Knights Valley. Beringer Knights Valley is an excellent wine. The 21 in particular is very tasty. And usually that's right around 30, maybe 31, but it's right. It's kind of in that ballpark. Lava Cap is kind of near the lake country in California, and that's a cheaper one, but that's a pretty darn solid wine and cab as well. But I would say if you're going like 30, if you're willing to stretch to like 32, Beringer Knights Valley I think is.
And we'll get to a few more of these tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Keep them coming, kids.
Keep them coming because we got mailbags to do. We got talks to have. Maybe we'll have some news for you. I don't know.
Sure.
We'll see. All right. So much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, an official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. All right, welcome in. March Madness underway. Nathan Zagura here, the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet on ESPN Cleveland. All right, Gibbe, what's the latest? Talk to us. Can High Point do it?
No.
No? Definitively no?
38.5 seconds left. Boiler up by 10.
So that means I can only, Bo and I in our crazy bracket, we are now capped at a maximum of 14 of the Sweet 16. We are not, though.
Right. G-Man in the bracket that's going up against you had Louisville in the Final Four and lost.
Oh, well, that's nice. Until our 11 seed that we have going to the championship game, UNC, gets eliminated by Ole Miss. That'll be great.
Creighton beat Louisville 89-75.
Yep.
2 minutes.
At halftime, all Houston as they're beating Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. Great little institution for partying. 52-24.
It's unbelievable.
Wisconsin holding on and beating Montana 56-47 with 13.5 to go in the second.
Okay, it's close at least.
It's respectable.
So far, only Creighton's the only upset thus far. An 8-9, that's hardly an upset.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right now we're chalk.
What's the rest of the slate today?
Decent. Let's see. Coming up at 2:50, Auburn, Alabama State.
Okay.
Sorry. Clemson, McNeese. I don't know. McNeese's coach is already leaving, going somewhere else. I think he's going to NC State. 4
we have
o'clock.
them winning.
Huh? I know.
How in the world? We'd rather vacation.
Bad decision there.
Yeah, I guess McNeese.
They got the ultimate hype man, though. Their manager is the ultimate hype man. The way he comes out with a big boombox and everything like that. I love the way at the end of the floor.
There's two games, 4:05 and 4:30,
2
two
minutes.
good ones. BYU, VCU,
1
and
minute,
Gonzaga, Georgia. Tonight, Kansas, Arkansas at 7:10. Texas A&M and Yale at 7:25. That'll be a decent one. St. John's, Omaha at 9:45. The one that everybody's picking for an upset, except for me. Michigan taking on UC San Diego at 10 o'clock tonight. There's a whole slate, man. There's like
Arizona's tomorrow. St. Mary's is tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the big stuff there. That's the big stuff right there. All right, the next level is next. The madness rolls on here. We want to thank Chris Trapasso. Big shout out to him from CBS for spending all that time with us. Thanks to the great Mel Kiper as well. For Gibbe, G-Man, Dr. J, I'm Nathan Zagura saying thanks for listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet on 850 ESPN Cleveland.